My twin sister cheated on my best friend. My parents cut me off for 3 years for not abandoning him. Now they're back, begging for $90K for her wedding to the affair partner, and what I did left them with no family, no money, and completely alone. I'm 35 years old. I own a restaurant that's doing pretty well, and I haven't spoken to my parents or my twin sister in 3 years. But the thing is, now, after all that time, they showed up at my restaurant like nothing happened, asking me to give them $90,000 for my sister's wedding. $90,000. For my sister's second wedding. With the guy she cheated on her first husband with, who happens to be my best friend. I mean, can you believe it? The audacity of these people has no limits, seriously. Let me start from the beginning, because this story is long, and I need you to understand all the context so you can see why what I did wasn't just justified, but was the bare minimum I could do. My twin sister's name is Natalie. She's 16 minutes younger than me, and for as long as we can remember, she's been my parents' golden child, George and Deborah. My dad was a real estate agent. He's retired now, and my mom is a history professor at the university. Educated. People, the kind of families that look perfect from the outside, but inside they're more broken than anything. It's not that I was mistreated or anything dramatic like that, but let's just say that if she wanted something, she got it. And if I wanted the same thing, I had to work twice as hard to prove it. She'd get a B+, and she was a genius. I'd get an A, and it was expected. She wanted piano lessons, and they'd pay for them immediately. I wanted guitar lessons, and I had to wait until there was budget, which, spoiler alert, there never was. You know what I mean? It was that kind of subtle but constant favoritism that eats away at you year after year. So anyway, when I got to college, I met Jason. Jason was, and still is, my best friend. I met him the first day of classes. We sat together in an intro to business class because we both arrived late, and those were the only available seats, and basically we became inseparable from that moment. On. The guy is incredible, super loyal, funny, smart, comes from a normal family that doesn't make stupid differences between their kids. We graduated together, shared an apartment for a while, and I honestly considered him more my family than my own biological family. When we'd been friends for like 2 years, like in our junior year of college, Jason told me he wanted to meet new people, and I, like an idiot, thought it would be a good idea to introduce him to Natalie. She was 21 at the time, studying marketing or something like that. I don't remember exactly. And I thought they might get along well. And boy, did they get along. They started dating almost immediately, and I was happy because my two favorite people were together, Like I felt like I finally had a real family, one that I had built. They dated for 6 years. 6 full years. Jason was the perfect boyfriend. Seriously. He'd organize surprises for her, support her in everything, treat her like a queen. My parents loved him, obviously, because he treated their princess well. They got engaged when they were both like 27, had a beautiful wedding. I was Jason's best man, and everything was perfect, or so it seemed. The marriage lasted 3 years. 3 years where, from the outside, everything looked wonderful, but apparently inside, Natalie was bored or unsatisfied, or whatever excuse people use for doing monumental fuck-ups. Turns out Natalie met a guy at her work, some Marcus guy, and started an affair with him. It wasn't a one-night mistake. It wasn't something that happened in a moment of weakness, no. It was a complete parallel relationship that lasted like 8 months before Jason found out. Jason discovered the infidelity in the most cliché way possible. He found messages on her phone. He called me at 2 a.m, devastated, crying, and I went to his apartment immediately. I'll never forget how he looked that night, sitting on the living room floor with Natalie's phone in his hand, reading message after message from her telling this Marcus that she loved him, that Jason was boring, that she couldn't wait to be with him. It was heartbreaking, literally. And the worst part is that when Jason confronted her, Natalie didn't even deny anything. She told him yes, that she was in love with Marcus, that she wanted a divorce, and that Jason should be grateful that, at least she was honest in the end. Grateful? Grateful that after 8 months of lies, she finally admitted the truth when she got caught. My sister's twisted logic has no limits. Jason obviously filed for divorce immediately. There wasn't complicated legal drama because they didn't have kids, and they divided everything pretty quickly, but emotionally, the guy was destroyed, shattered. And I was there with him the whole time, because that's what real friends do, what real brothers do. My parents, of course, immediately took Natalie's side. According to them, marriages are complicated, people change. Jason probably didn't pay her enough attention, all the excuses in the world to justify the unjustifiable. I tried to make them see reason, but it was useless. For them, Natalie could burn down an orphanage, and she'd still be their perfect little girl who just had bad luck. When the divorce was finalized, like 2 months after everything exploded, Natalie called me. She told me she needed to talk to me, that it was important, so I agreed to see her at a coffee shop. I thought maybe she was going to apologize, that maybe she'd reflected on the damage she caused. How naive I was. What she really wanted was to give me an ultimatum. She told me, and I quote this textually because it's burned into my brain. She told me that if I wanted to continue being part of the family, I had to cut contact with Jason, that it was him or her, that I couldn't be loyal to both, and that if I kept being friends with Jason, I was choosing to betray her. I sat there looking at her like she'd grown a second head. I asked her if she was serious, if she really expected me to abandon my best friend, the guy she herself emotionally destroyed, just to keep her happy. And she said yes, that's how it was. That was her condition. I told her to go fuck herself, basically. I told her that she was the one who cheated, who lied, who ruined a perfect marriage, and that if anyone should be expelled from the family, it was her, not Jason or me. She left that coffee shop furious, and I thought, well, at least now I knew where I stood. But, oh no, the thing was just beginning. A week later, my parents summoned me to a family meeting at their house. A family meeting, as if we were going to discuss the vacation budget or something. When I arrived, they were sitting in the living room with those serious faces they put on when they want to give you a lecture, and basically they repeated the same ultimatum as Natalie, and that Jason was no longer family, that the divorce was finalized, that I had to choose to support my blood sister or lose my family. I explained to them that Jason had been my best friend for over 10 years, that he didn't do anything wrong, that Natalie was the one who made the mistake, and that I wasn't going to abandon him just because it was uncomfortable for her, that I maintained that friendship. My dad, George, told me I was being immature, that blood is more important than any friendship, that I had to grow up and understand that families support each other no matter what. And I responded that that's exactly why I was supporting Jason, because he'd been more family to me than any of them in all those years. My mom, Deborah, started crying. She's always been super emotional and dramatic, uses tears as a weapon to manipulate situations. She told me I was breaking her heart, that how could I choose a stranger over my own sister, that she didn't raise me to be so cruel. And I was sitting there thinking, really? I'm the cruel one in this situation? Natalie, literally, destroyed someone's life, and I'm the bad guy for not abandoning him. The meeting ended with my parents telling me I had a week to think about it and make the right decision. That week passed, and obviously I didn't change my mind. I called my dad and told him my answer was no, that I wasn't going to cut contact with Jason, and that if that meant they were going to cut me off, then go ahead. And that's exactly what they did. Natalie gave my parents an ultimatum, told them that if they kept talking to me, she'd cut them off too. And my parents, true to their history of always prioritizing Natalie, cut me off completely. They stopped answering my calls, my messages, blocked my number. It was like I had died to them. And all because I refused to abandon my best friend, who did absolutely nothing wrong, except have the bad luck of marrying my sister. The first few months were weird. I'm not gonna lie. As dysfunctional as my family was, they were still my family, and suddenly having no contact with them was strange, but it was also liberating in a certain sense. I didn't have to deal with the constant favoritism toward Natalie. I didn't have to pretend everything was okay when it clearly wasn't. I didn't have to bite my tongue every time they wanted to excuse my sister's horrible behavior. Jason and I became even closer during that time. He was recovering from the divorce, met a new girl after like a year and a half, some Rebecca, who's great, and I was working on opening my own restaurant. I'd always wanted to have my own business in the food industry, had worked at various restaurants for years, saving money, and I finally got the capital to open my own. It was tough at first, like any new business, but little by little it started to do well. 3 years passed. 3 full years without any contact with my parents or Natalie. During that time, my restaurant really took off when a pretty popular food blogger wrote an incredible review about us. After that, we started having a waiting list, local press, all that kind of stuff. The restaurant was generating good income. I had excellent employees, and I finally felt like I'd built something successful on my own without the help or approval of my family. And then, like 2 months ago, a normal Tuesday at the restaurant, I was checking inventory in the kitchen when one of my waiters came to tell me there were 2 people at the entrance asking for me. I came out and there were my parents, George and Deborah, after 3 years of absolute silence, standing in my restaurant like nothing had happened. My first reaction was shock, honestly. I didn't expect to see them ever again, much less for them to show up unannounced at my workplace. I asked them what they were doing there, and my dad said they needed to talk to me, that it was important, if we could go somewhere more private. I took them to my office in the back, more than anything because I didn't want to make a scene in front of my employees and customers. And that's when they dropped the bomb. Turns out Natalie is getting married again. And not only is she getting married, but she wants a huge wedding, like one of those Hollywood productions that cost a fortune. My parents had saved some money for this event, but it wasn't enough for the kind of wedding Natalie wanted, so they were coming to ask me, no, rather to demand that I contribute $90,000 to complete the budget. I sat there processing what they'd just said. After 3 years of not talking to me, of treating me like I didn't exist, of choosing Natalie over me again and again, they showed up asking for almost $100,000. And the most incredible thing is, they said it with absolute seriousness, as if what they were asking was completely reasonable. I asked them if they were joking, and my mom told me no. That Natalie was my sister, my twin, and that it was my responsibility to help her. In such an important moment of her life, my responsibility. After years of not considering me part of their lives, suddenly it was my responsibility to finance her second wedding with the guy she cheated on my best friend with. I started laughing. Seriously. I laughed in their faces because the situation was so absurd, I couldn't have any other reaction. And I told them no, obviously not, that I wasn't going to give them a single cent, that they could leave my restaurant and never come back. My dad turned red with anger and started with the speech about how I was selfish, that the restaurant was clearly doing well, so I had the money, that how could I be so resentful toward my own sister? And that's when I let everything out. I told them they cut me off for 3 years for not abandoning my innocent friend, that they never apologized, that they showed up only because they needed money, and that frankly both of their children didn't give a damn about them as people. I told them that Natalie only looked for them when she needed something, that I no longer considered them my family, and that Jason, who they wanted me to abandon, had been more of a father and mother to me than they ever were. They left furious, obviously. My mom crying, my dad muttering empty threats about how I was going to regret this. And I stood there, feeling a weird mix of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because I finally told them everything I'd been wanting to tell them for years. Sadness because this was really the final confirmation that my biological family was a lost cause. I thought that was the end of it, but oh no, my parents don't know the meaning of the word boundaries. Like a week later, my dad started calling me at the restaurant constantly. He'd leave messages saying my mom was emotionally destroyed, that I'd broken her heart, that I had to go visit her and fix things. I responded by text telling him that if my mom was so destroyed, maybe she should reflect on why her son, I doesn't want to talk to her, and that I wasn't going anywhere unless they both came with a sincere apology for everything that happened. My dad responded saying they had nothing to apologize for, that they'd acted like any parent would supporting their daughter in a difficult moment, and that I was the one who should apologize for breaking the family. I told them that if they kept calling me and harassing me, I was going to call the police for harassment. That stopped them for a while. But then, like 3 weeks ago, I got a message from a cousin, Catherine. Catherine is pregnant with her first baby. She's like 32, and she was always one of the few decent people in my extended family. She told me that Natalie had gone to a family gathering, and when Catherine announced her pregnancy and everyone started congratulating her, Natalie exploded. She accused Catherine of trying to steal her spotlight, of announcing her pregnancy so close to the wedding on purpose to eclipse her. All kinds of narcissistic craziness. Catherine told her to calm down, that her pregnancy had nothing to do with Natalie's wedding, that in fact, she wasn't even going to attend the wedding because she didn't approve of her marrying the guy she cheated on Jason with. And there Natalie really lost her mind. Started screaming that everyone in the family were traitors, that nobody supported her, that I had poisoned them against her. Catherine told me that after that incident, she and her husband cut contact with Natalie completely, and that several other cousins and aunts and uncles did the same. But wait, it gets better. My parents, in their infinite wisdom, decided that all of this was my fault. They made a Facebook post, because apparently they're 12 years old mentally, saying that their family was being ostracized and that it was all because of the negative influence of their son who refused to forgive past mistakes. They didn't mention me by name, but all the extended family obviously knew who they were talking about. That post backfired on them in a beautiful way. Cousins, uncles, and aunts, even some close family friends commented on the post, telling their version of events, saying that Natalie had been horrible to Catherine, that my parents had always shown ridiculous favoritism toward her, that I'd been treated unfairly for years. The post became a kind of public intervention, where all the extended family basically told my parents that they were the problem, not me. My dad deleted the post after like 2 days, but the damage was already done. Catherine told me that after that, several relatives stopped talking to my parents and Natalie too. They basically isolated themselves from the whole family because of their behavior. And here comes the cherry on top. 2 weeks ago, Catherine wrote me again with the most beautiful update I could imagine. Turns out that after losing the support of much of the extended family, my parents had to tell Natalie they couldn't contribute the $90,000 they'd promised for the wedding. Not only did they not get my money, but now they didn't even have the money they'd saved because apparently they spent it on, I don't know what, probably trying to look good to Natalie in other ways. Natalie, being Natalie, exploded at them. She told them they were useless, that they ruined her wedding, that first they lost their favorite son. Those were her exact words according to Catherine, who heard it from an aunt who was present, and now they were ruining the most important day of her life. She gave them an ultimatum. Get the money, or she'd cut them out of her life too. Obviously, they didn't get the money, and Natalie followed through on her threat. She cut contact with George and Deborah completely. The wedding happened anyway, but it was a much more modest version, paid for mainly by Marcus's family, and my parents weren't even invited. 3 years they cut me off for not abandoning Jason, and now their golden daughter cut them off for not being able to finance her dream wedding with her lover-turned-husband. The last time I heard about them was like a week ago. Catherine told me my parents are basically alone now. Most of the extended family doesn't talk to them, Natalie has them blocked everywhere, and apparently my mom has been going to therapy because she finally realized the mess she created. They haven't tried to contact me again. I guess they finally understood that that bridge isn't just burned, but the ashes don't even exist anymore. Do I feel bad for them? The truth is, no. Part of me, a very small part, feels pity because they're older people who ended up alone, but honestly they brought it on themselves. They spent decades prioritizing Natalie over everything and everyone, ignoring her toxic behaviors, enabling her narcissism, and when finally someone, me, refused to play along, they punished me for it. And when another person, Catherine, refused to tolerate Natalie's abuse, they supported her instead of their daughter. They reaped exactly what they sowed. Jason is still my best friend. He's engaged to Rebecca now, and they're incredibly happy together. My restaurant keeps growing. I'm considering opening a second location next year. I have a life built with people who value me, respect me, and don't ask me to abandon my principles to keep them happy. Did I learn something from all this? I guess so. I learned that family isn't just blood, that sometimes the people you choose are more family than the ones you got by biology. I learned that setting boundaries, even if it hurts, even if it costs you relationships, is absolutely necessary for your mental health. And I learned that people who love you conditionally, who are only there when it's convenient for them, don't deserve a place in your life. Natalie is living her life with Marcus. My parents are alone, facing the consequences of their decisions, and I'm here, happy, successful, surrounded by good people. I don't need their approval, I don't need their money, and I definitely don't need their drama. Life has a funny way of balancing things out in the end, I guess. And watching them fall after years of acting like they were untouchable has been, I'm not going to lie, pretty satisfying.